Well, it's good to be back.
You
I've
have been
missed
gone for 7 months.
it. It feels like that. I hit a crazy ministry season. I spent there's a 35-day window where I only spent 11 of those 35 days in my own bed.
I'm not
Um,
concerned about that. I'm concerned about your vacation from the podcast where I had to go solo. I'm
hey,
too
and
I'm
I,
too
I
I'm
heard,
too old to go solo.
and the people have responded. You as listeners loved it.
No, they,
Um,
they love the content on Edison. They
they
didn't say
loved
they
it. So
they didn't say they love me being solo. They said, "Oh, you went out of your typical genre on that and did Edison on leadership." Yeah, 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 yeah.
I
I
don't
I,
know.
I
I guess we got to do some A/B testing to figure this out because
I'm I'm do I'm doing
I've had a
no.
short run at jumping into a podcast. Maybe it's time for me to retire and let you take back over.
No, if we're going to do solo, I'm gone. I am not
Well, it
doing
is good to be
solo.
back, and let me officially, for all of our listeners out there, welcome you to the Church Answers podcast. If you're
Yep.
jumping in for the first time, my name is Jess Rainer. I am here with my dad, Thom Rainer, and we love talking about the local church. We love talking about different questions that maybe you didn't even know you were asking, but maybe they're in there somewhere. And we'd love to be able to ask the questions alongside of you. Just different questions about church ministry and what's happening in the life of the church. Sometimes, as you may have picked up from these previous episodes that my dad was referring to, a little off topic at times, but still leadership oriented. And so we love to be able to talk about church questions, but more importantly, church answers, which is why we
Yeah.
call this the Church Answers podcast.
Okay. I
Before
got, I
we,
got, I got a listener question. So
okay,
as soon as you acknowledge and celebrate Cheney, I want to go to a listener question.
all right, we'll get that in a minute. Yes, before we figure out what this listener question is, I don't know what it is. I'm kind of curious too. We do want to thank one of our sponsors for this podcast, Cheney and Associates. They are the accounting firm for the church. They know church. They know local church ministry. They know what it means to be involved in the local church. And so they love coming alongside you as church leaders, if you're listening to this podcast, to help you out. And so if you have any financial needs, accounting needs, bookkeeping needs, make sure you go check out Cheney and Associates. You can go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers, CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. Go see what they can do and just get on a discovery call with them. You never know what they can do for you. They are a tremendous partner here of Church Answers, but it's mainly because they love to help out the local church. So thank you to Cheney and Associates for sponsoring this podcast today. All right, so what's this question? I'm curious. What's this listener question you got for us?
I suppose the foundation of this question was comments that I made or you made many years ago when you first launched the church at Spring Hill, and even more so when your mom and I began to be a part of the church at Spring Hill after you started it in the home. And then
Mm-hmm.
we had our first location, and we made the decision that that was going to be our church home. And I think you, and I don't recall how many or if it was even frequent or not, you got questions like, what is it like to have your dad in the church? And I don't even remember your answers. That's not that important. The listener question this time was, what is it like to have your son as pastor?
Hmm.
And so I'm going to answer that question, Zeke.
All right.
I'm going to answer that question. It is the best church experience I have ever had. Now, that includes me and being pastor of 4 churches. A lot of it has to do with Jess's leadership and preaching. A lot of it has to do with the whole culture of the church. The church is just, it is a warm, sweet, welcoming church. And every church thinks they are, but I've been around enough churches to know when they are and when they aren't, because I've pastored some churches that were mean, and I knew they were mean. I couldn't fake that they were sweet. But that's part of it. The other part of Zeke of Jess being our pastor is I truly submit to his leadership. Now you may say, oh, Thom Rainer is just going to tell Jess what to do, or Tom's going to be in charge and all that. I am not an elder of the church. Jess would never let me be an elder of the church. I wouldn't be an elder of the church. That would not be appropriate for me to be on the board that looks over my son. That wouldn't be appropriate. And then second of all, anything I do that I think is consequential, and I think I do anything, I bring before Jess. Hey, Jess, would you be open to me talking to Amy, who's head of our hospitality ministry, about doing a parking lot ministry? Hey, Jess, we're looking at studying this in community group. Are you okay with this book? So my perspective on this is my son is the leader. I submit to his leadership, not because he's my son, but because he is my pastor. And I am absolutely loving sitting in the chairs instead of standing in the pulpit. It has been really a joy. I love when a church says, "Can you come preach on a weekend?" I say, "Nope, not doing it." I just have just made that decision, and with the exception of going to his brother's homes, where his oldest brother, would be a pastor, and going to hear him, or going to his middle brother's church. That's where I am every single Sunday. So
Sure.
that's the perspective I want to answer. You have anything to add to that?
No, I mean I've only had to do damage control one time with you, and so over the past, I think
That
you've
was
been
an
coming.
act. That was an accident. It was dark, and she looked like your mother.
Oh, I forgot about that one. So two times I've had to do damage control.
Oh gosh, what was the other one?
Oh, we'll talk about it later. So yeah, I'll do two times. You've been going for about. You didn't come right at the onset. It was shortly after we launched the church you came. So, but you've been there for. I mean, well, you've been with me throughout the whole history. So you've been a part of the church in different ways, but actively attending for a little, probably about 9 years, a little over 9 years.
I know.
So
That's
I'd say
amazing.
two times out of 9 years. That's a pretty good track record for me.
I
I'll
don't. I
take
don't.
it.
I don't know which one you're referring to that you refused to say on air, but the one that we've already talked about on air is when I sat down by a female when it was,
That wasn't mom, right?
yeah, that
Yes.
wasn't mom, when it was dark in the worship service, and I sat very close to her and almost snuggled up to her, only to find out when your mom came over to sit by me that the woman sitting next to me was not your mom.
Yeah,
Scared
yeah.
me to
Well,
death.
I do love that perspective. And more importantly, I love having mom there. If
I
you've
know
ever
you do.
listened to this podcast, y'all know I
Or
refer
come
to
to
her.
the church.
She is my CEO, my chief encouragement officer, and every Sunday that she's there, she walks up to me and says, "It's the best sermon I've ever heard." And so love it, love having her there. And
She
you're
actually
all right
means
too.
it, though.
What's that?
She actually means it.
She does. She really does mean it. That's the awesome thing about a mom. And I mean, there's some bias there for sure. But I'll take it. I love having my parents in my corner. It really is a blessing. I don't consider that. I don't take it for granted. Let me put it that way. And one of the things, what's been cool about our conversations over the years, because I ask you. I said, sometimes I need the dad hat on. Sometimes I need the church member hat on. Sometimes I need the church consultant hat on. And we've used that language over the years. When I come to you, I'm like, hey, this is what I need from you right now. One of these three hats. Every so often, I'll ask for the church consulting hat on, which is really cool. And you do a good job of stepping outside of the church and looking at it. And one of the things I think consistently over the years that you have, from a consulting mindset, has reminded me to do is stay actively involved in the community, reaching the community. It's easy to let outreach slide. It's if you're not having someone in your life that's intentionally pushing you towards that, there's so many things that can happen in the life of a church that causes churches not to do outreach. Which brings us to the topic of today's podcast.
Good
We're
segue. I didn't
we're going
set
to be
that up
looking at
myself.
this podcast and the next podcast. We're going to be looking at 8 reasons most churches do not do outreach. We're going to look at for this episode, for the next episode, but 8 reasons most churches do not do outreach. I mean, it's a calling. We are. I say it often. Our goal at the Church of Spring Hill is to be a great commandment and a great commission church. We're to live out Matthew 28. We're live out Acts 1:8. That's our
Matthew
calling.
9.
Is to go.
Matthew 9. That's our benediction.
Matthew 9. Jesus looked upon the crowds. They were distressed and dejected like sheep without a shepherd. He says, go and pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. That's the goal, and that's what we're supposed to do. But it's easy. It's easy sometimes to lose sight of that. So let's talk about 8 reasons most churches do not do outreach. The first one, and Dad, you can unpack this, confusion about what outreach is. I will have something to say on this one, but I'll let you start.
Working with multiple denominations, non-denominational churches, nomenclature changes from church to church. But I want to be clear on this. From our perspective, when we use the word outreach, our very clear definition is getting the unchurched to become churched. You can have community ministries. You can have big events that may not bring anybody to the church. Those are good things. But when we are talking about outreach, it is those who are not in a church coming to the church, whether they are moving from another town, that would be a form of transfer growth, whether they're in the community and haven't been in church a while, the de-church, or whether they are totally unchurched and not Christians. Outreach is that moving the unchurched to become church. That does not mean the rest of those activities aren't bad. It just
Mhm.
means that many churches will do something and think that they are doing what we just defined, moving
Right.
the unchurched to the churched.
Right. Yeah. I had a team meeting with our missions team this past Sunday at my church. And our missions team is over, it's our Acts 1:8 team. Their job is to oversee our local, domestic, and international missions. Those are our three major prongs that we have. We were talking specifically in this meeting this past Sunday about what is our local missions, our Jerusalem, what is our local missions that we are doing. And I broke it off into three different ways that we can impact the community. The first one was community service. We can go out and just do things for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Just go paint a classroom at a local school. That's
Mm-hmm.
community service. That's number one. Number two is outreach, which is actively engaging the community to have them come to the church. You're reaching out so that they will come. That's outreach. And the third aspect is evangelism. It's actively, intentionally sharing the gospel with your community. Now, you can have a blending of all three:
Mm-hmm.
community service, outreach, evangelism. You could have a blending of two of them. But the idea is that you have to understand, what are you actually engaging in? Is it just community service? Is it just outreach? Or is it just evangelism? Or is it a mixture of two or three of those? I think as a church, you need to understand the differences and what the goal is. One is just to say we love you. One is to say we want you to come join us, and the other is we want you to come be a part of the family of God. All three of those are needed, I believe, in an effective strategy to reach your community. And so having that terminology, I think, is really, really key.
And from a consulting point of view, community service rarely leads to outreach and gospel confrontations. It should,
Hmm.
but usually community service becomes the end into itself, and you have to do something different or something more for it to get people into the church and get people confronted with the gospel of Christ.
Right. Yeah. So I think if you're thinking, why do most churches not do outreach? Well, it's because maybe you haven't just defined it. You have confusion about what outreach really is.
Yeah,
And
I'm meeting with a church tomorrow via Zoom, a church in Colorado, and I can tell you already, based upon our earlier conversation, we're going to have that conversation. Why aren't we reaching anybody? Well, you're not trying to reach anybody. That's
Mhm.
really the conclusion. You're doing things, but you're not trying to reach people.
Yeah. And to even clarify it a little bit more, and this is again the conversation I had recently with some leaders in my church, outreach can happen on site or outreach can happen off site.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's, I think a classic event is a trunk or treat. That is a outreach event. Some can say, well, it's serving the community as well. Yeah. I mean, you could start redefining it. Some would say, what's evangelism? Well, it's only evangelism if someone's intentionally sharing the gospel. A lot of churches just do trunk or treats just to have an outreach event to say, hey, come to our church.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can also have offsite. I think some of the best offsite ways is actually joining in a community event that already exists.
Mm-hmm.
Going to a local park, if there's soccer games, handing out free waters and inviting people to church. So outreach can happen both on site and off sites. Uh,
And excuse me,
Go
go
ahead.
on. Well, we usually wait till about the midpoint, and we really are at the midpoint. We've taken quite a while. We'll go through the others a little faster, but this is a great segue to go right into upward
That's
and
right.
talk about not just getting into sports ministries, but creating sports ministries.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
go for it.
We thank Cheney Associates at the top of the podcast, but we have another sponsor we do want to thank, and that is Upward Sports. And you talk about, again, just reaching out to the community. They have a program for running, Upward Running for Adults, and they will help you offer a 5K challenge in your community. They help runners or walkers move from the couch to actually completing a 5K. They got all the tools, all the apps, all the coaching, everything you need. All you need as a church is one passionate person. Maybe that person isn't even a runner, but they're just passionate about reaching the community. This is a great way to outreach to the community is by partnering with Upward Sports, particularly Upward Running for adults. Super easy to start. You don't need a church facility. You just need a place to run. So if you're thinking about, oh, how do I go outreach? Start with Upward. Go to the website, go to upward.org/runcoach and check it out for there. So we're looking at 8 reasons why most churches do not do church outreach. One is confusion about what outreach is. And I think it's okay we spent a good amount of time on that, because where there's a lack of clarity, there's confusion. And where there's confusion, there can be chaos. And so the idea is, all right, let's get clarity about it. Let's talk about our second reason most churches do not do outreach. And it's that the lead pastor can't take on another responsibility. There's too many things happening.
I've heard it, and it's true. I mean, the pastor is loaded down with responsibilities. The most effective outreach, here's the paradox. The most effective outreach is going to occur when the pastor is the example and leader of it. The most effective outreach is going to occur when the pastor's not doing most of it. And that's the truth about both statements. If it's just the pastor doing it, it's going to result in burnout. If it's the pastor leading by example, but it's at least one other person is taking that responsibility and say, I'm going to lead this church under the authority of the pastor in outreach, then that works. I've had 2 in 4 churches. Second church was Van. He was a renegade. I led him to Christ, and he couldn't understand why other people wouldn't come to Christ. He came close to getting in fights with people because they wouldn't accept Christ, which is probably not the best approach. And then the other one was a senior adult by the name of Frances Mason. She would bring people into church. She would already share the gospel with them. And many times they had already become followers of Christ, and then they just presented themselves to the church. So you got to have that other person, but you also got to have a pastor that exemplifies it, models it, but doesn't expect it to do it all or even to lead it, but at least to model it.
I think an effective way is you have someone in church that is leading the planning and the execution of it, and the pastor's actively participating in it.
That's
I think
perfect.
That's the ideal model of outreach in the church. But I would say this: I mean, if there is zero outreach happening in the life of your church, and you're just thinking, I can't do another thing, I'd say you're probably better off cutting something out and adding that in.
Well, Jess, you were born during my first pastorate, Southern Indiana. You have no memory of it, but that was a church that had no outreach. That a church that had not had a conversion in 26 years. So obviously there was no outreach. I had to do it to start off with. And I got to tell you, I was 15 hours a week in the classroom, 30 hours a week studying, 35 hours a week working at a local bank. And I had to find a way to do it just because it was not getting done. A lot of other things got left out. My preaching was poor, but over the years, it never improved. So that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, well, so our second reason most churches do not do outreach is the pastor can't take another responsibility. But this is a responsibility that has to be taken within the church. So you got to think about it. How do we make it happen in our church? Our third reason why churches typically don't do outreach is confused with marketing. And this goes back a little bit what we're saying at the beginning with having some clarity about what outreach is, but most confuse outreach with marketing.
And some marketing actually is successful in bringing people into a church. So in that sense, it's bringing the unchurched to the church. As you know, my story, I used a series of Facebook ads to build our community group at our church at Spring Hill. And why I discontinued that, I don't know, but it's almost everybody there came through a Facebook ad. So it was effective, but it cannot replace the human touch. You cannot have digital and AI become your gospel bearer. It can only be a tool.
Yeah. I mean, marketing by definition is people becoming aware of the church. That's maybe that's not the best marketing definition, but it's more of awareness. It's brand awareness. We think of Facebook ads, we think about mailers. It's more brand awareness. I think outreach, when you think of missions, when you think about carrying out Acts 1:8, outreach has a personal touch.
Yep.
In fact, when you talk about it, the greatest form of outreach, I believe you said, is the personal invitation.
It is.
And
It's
so when you,
powerful. Personal invitation when you bring them, not personal
right.
invitation and tell them to show up.
It's a personal bringing, not a personal invitation.
Yep.
It's more about getting them to commit to come. But you can't confuse that. Marketing is great. Don't stop doing that. But you can't say that is the way you're reaching your community with
Right.
that. Our fourth and our final one for this episode of why churches do not do outreach is lack of consistency. They
There
just
are
don't keep doing it.
there are a number of approaches to outreach where you're going to have seasons of dryness and seasons of fruit. There are going to be some approaches of outreach where it has to build before it gets effective, whether it is digital or in person or not. You got to just stay with it, and you
Mm-hmm.
just got to continue to do it in obedience. But also there's a pragmatic side to it. If you continue in persistence, you will see some fruit at some point. It may not be immediate, but you will see some fruit. I don't know any church that has done outreach for over a year, true outreach, that hasn't seen some fruit. But I know some
Yeah.
churches that tried something for 2 or 3 months and said this didn't work, and then obviously nothing happens.
Yeah, it's the key. Consistency is key. In fact, going back to that meeting I had recently with my missions team, we were planning a fall strategy, and basically it came up that they want to do two events, the same two events for 3 straight months. These are outreach events. We defined them as purely outreach events,
Mm-hmm.
and so the idea is September, October, November. We're going to do two each month, the same two every month, and start building some consistency with our outreach. We've been pretty inconsistent. I'll admit, the church at Spring Hill, it's been hot and cold, do this, don't do this, and see, the idea is to see it do, maybe one of those, does it stick? I have my Know Your Community report. I know my community. I know where the needs are. And so based off that information, we're doing two different type of outreach events consistently over 3 months in order to potentially see which one sticks and see if it connects with the community where we perceive there's a true need within the community. So more to come on that. Maybe at some point we'll follow up in the coming months. But when we're recording this episode, it's the end of July, and so we're planning out September, October, and November.
Good.
Consistency,
Good.
it's key.
So we got 4. We got to do 4 more in the next episode.
That's right. We're not done. Well, let me say, this episode's coming to a close, but we're not done with the topic, and so we're going to look at 4 more reasons, reasons 5, 6, 7, and 8 of why most churches don't do outreach. And my hope is, if you're listening to this podcast, is that you're beginning to think through maybe the why. Why are we not doing outreach? And by the end of the next episode, you can begin to formulate some kind of plan, even if it's simple. Maybe it's just something that I communicated where your church is like, let's do the same thing for 3 straight months. Let's define it. Let's know it exactly where it is. Let's find a leader in the church who can do this. You sit down with that leader, you have them plan out. You get to know your community report from Church Answers. You figure out where the biggest needs are. That's my hope. So if you're processing that right now, join us for the next episode. We're going to look at the next 4 reasons why most churches do not do outreach. But before we go, we do want to thank Cheney and Associates one more time. Go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. And here's why. They will help you with all your bookkeeping and accounting and finance needs. They understand the local church. They speak local church language. They know it all. They want you to have clear financial insights to guide your ministry decisions with confidence. They can provide fast, accurate information when it comes to finances to help you lead your church. They know stewardship matters. They know time is precious. They can help with both. So go check out Cheney and Associates. Go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. If you're watching with us on YouTube, you can go check out the show notes. If you're listening to this, type it in on your phone. Hopefully you're not driving and typing, but type it in on your phone. You can give a good old, hey Siri, go to this website. And so go check out CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. We're so thankful for them, and we're thankful for you. And we're thankful that we get to continue this conversation in the next episode. So make sure you check it out, and we're going to continue to see why churches don't do outreach and maybe some things that can help along the way. We'll see you in the next episode.